Folks, it's finally here. Something that I have wanted on Underdog Fantasy for quite some time. We do have soccer, best ball. The kind benevolent overlords over at Underdog Fantasy have released the World Pup, $30,000 to first place, a best ball tournament that's going to be taking place during the FIFA World Cup this summer. It's the simplest format in fantasy sports. It is a $250,000 prize pool. It costs $10 to enter. I'm going to be doing all 150. The way the tournament is structured, basically, this is what you need to know. This is playoff best ball for the World Cup, and we are going to get into the nitty-gritty of how to draft winning teams. And I promise that by the end of this relatively short video, you are going to be able to draft teams that can win you money in World Cup best ball over on Underdog Fantasy. The tournament is structured this way. It begins in the group stage, 3 group games per team. The top 2 from each group in the actual World Cup advance, and then the same thing happens in the actual World Cup. 2 out of 6 in your individual group. Then we go to the next round of games, which is the combination round of 32 and round of 16. I think this is basically going to be where we sort of weed out the good best ball team from the bad best ball teams, because only 1 out of 8 in those pods are going to advance. It's 2 single elimination knockout games combined into 1 scoring round on Underdog. Then in round 3, we have the quarterfinals and the semifinals. It's 2 more knockout games. At this stage, I'm basically expecting really only quite good real life teams to be left. I would sort of be surprised if we do get a real dark horse in here. Like if Uruguay makes the quarterfinals and the semifinals, I would be a little bit surprised. And then basically the same way, this is the way playoff best ball works for NFL. This is the way playoff best ball works for NBA, for NHL, for all of them. The final is where all of the money is. The final is a single match. There are 235 entries left standing, competing for the top prizes. So if you want to get first place, you have to have a full lineup in the final. And let's take a look at what that lineup is going to be. It is 12 round drafts. There are 6 drafters per room. You will draft a minimum of 1 goalie, 1 defender, 2 forwards, and 1 flex. That is going to function as your starting lineup. Now, we are going to get a little bit more into stacking and roster construction here in a little bit, but the way that you need to think of these drafts is pretty simple. When you get to the final, you need to have a goalie who can get points, 1 defender who can get points, 1 midfielder who can get points, 2 forwards. So forwards are the highest scoring players, obviously. We're going to get to the scoring system here in a little bit, and then a flex. And if you look at the type of players that you want to have in your flex, you're going to want a forward. I mean, is it possible that a midfielder or defender in the final could end up being in the winning flex? I mean, sure. If it's a 2-1 game, and all of the goals are scored via headed corners, then sure, maybe we do end up with 2 defenders being optimal. But basically, this is a game of trying to find goals. This is the scoring. 8 points for a goal, 5 points for a clean sheet for goalies and defenders, 4 points for an assist, 2 points for a shot on target, 1 point for a shot in general, 1 point for a chance created. That means you pass the ball to your teammate shoots it. So this is good for forwards. This is good for midfielders. Crucially, we do get points for crosses, and you might be saying, Davis, I'm new to soccer. I don't know what any of this is. A cross is generally speaking going to come from a corner kick or a free kick. So you want a lot of guys who are going to be taking corner kicks and free kicks for their team. And you do get some minimal points for tackles and for passes completed. Now, the passes completed is going to come in for teams like Spain, like France, like England, the very, very good teams, because you will see the defenders on those teams. They might be able to complete 70, 80, 90 passes in a game. So you can get 3.5, 4 points out of there, which does make up the difference. Goalies get 5 points for a win. Goalies also get 3 points for a penalty save and 2 points for a save in general. I think basically the right way to think about goalies is that they are a necessary evil. To me, the closest comparable would be quarterbacks in playoff best ball, where if you do not get Josh Allen when the Bills make it, if you do not get Drake May when the Patriots make it, it doesn't matter how good your skill position players are, you will not be winning. One of the things you will realize when you get into these drafts is that basically the goalies are overpriced relative to their scoring, but so much of the win equity is in just a few teams. And then we get to basically, if you take nothing away from this video and you do want to draft in the World Pup, which is the name of the contest on Underdog, you are not drafting players. When you go into these drafts, the players are sort of secondary to drafting countries. We are drafting countries that you believe can win the World Cup, or more importantly, make the final, and the best collection of players from that country. Even in NFL playoff best ball, it's pretty important to get advance rate pieces, and advance rate pieces will matter in this. Obviously, the big issue is going to be the advance rate pieces are also the really good players, because the really good players score fantasy points because their teams are favored. And there's a really great way to look at this. So I actually got a cold email from my guy, Zach Klein, and he ran simulations based off of publicly available API data that showed championship equity per team. The entire contest is going to be decided by what three specific teams do. Spain, France, and England capture almost 50% of the win equity of the whole tournament. They are the three teams that are 20% or more likely to make the final. All of them are expected to make the semis over 33% of the time. So I think a really helpful way to think about drafting in the World Cup is going to be, am I stacking Spain? Am I stacking France? Am I stacking England? If I am not stacking one of those three teams, am I trying to instead do a smaller stack? So instead of trying to get 4 players or 5 players from that team, am I trying to get 2 smaller players? By and large, these 10 teams, Spain, France, England, Argentina, Portugal, Brazil, Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Norway, I think if you are drafting teams in the World Cup that do not have any of those teams, I mean, you are probably just drawing dead. Soccer is sort of an interesting sport where in individual games, you will see a fair amount of upsets because it is a low event sport. I mean, Japan can win 1-0 versus Germany in a given game if the ball bounces their way, if they get a lucky penalty here or there. But by and large, I would say this: I would be frankly stunned if the winning team in this contest did not have 5 players from one of those top 3 teams, Spain, France, or England. I mean, you could toss Argentina in there. And then when we look at the market odds, there is a little bit different market odds compared to the Sims that Zach ran. The market odds are higher on Brazil. The market odds are a little bit higher on Argentina. They're much higher on the Netherlands. And then Belgium was actually a little bit underrated in the Sims. I pulled all of those sportsbook futures. And by the way, big shout out to our friends over at RotoWire. They do have a really nice World Cup preview that I pulled some data from here as well. But basically, it's not that it's the same as drafting. Maybe the best comparable is kind of like NBA playoff best ball, where if you are not drafting guys from the 1 seed, I mean, it basically does kind of feel like you are losing. Now, that doesn't mean that you should draft every single team the same way. It doesn't mean that sometimes you shouldn't start and try and do a Portugal and Germany final, because that is not going to be very well represented by the field. But what you will notice when you get into these drafts is that there's a huge premium on Spanish, French, and English players. Still a premium on Brazil, less of a premium on Argentina. But I don't want you to get too adventurous. I don't want you to be drafting a ton of, United States teams. I don't really want you to be drafting Turkey. I don't really want you to be drafting Uruguay, although Uruguay does have one very good player, Federico Valverde, who is kind of awesome for fantasy, which we are going to talk about when we get into a draft at the end here. But I want you guys to just kind of be following the money as it pertains to the market odds probability of reaching the final. The top 3 control the market. Spain, France, and England account for nearly half the implied championship probability. The Sims and the market, by and large, disagree. The Sims are a little bit higher on Belgium, Mexico, and Switzerland. So again, shout out to my guy, Zach Klein, for running these Sims and sending them to me. I have got 4 sample stack builds for you here. So the first one is just all in on Spain. You begin your draft with Lamine Yamal. You take either one of Nico Williams or maybe both with Mikel Alatharbal. I mean, he's boss. It's kind of hard for me to say his name. You also take the goalie, Unai Simon. Then you take Pedri, and then you take Marc Cucurella. It doesn't matter. Any one of the defenders. I think center backs are going to be fine. Then I have a French example. This one is going to be basically impossible to get now. The ADPs that I have in this document were a little bit stale, but you begin by taking Mbappe. You take another French player. I actually prefer Ryan Cherki to Adrien Tchouameni, but he's fine. And then you take William Saliba. So that is basically half your roster right there. And then the English example would be Harry Kane, Jude Bellingham, Bukayo Saka, Mark Gay, and then you would take Jordan Pickford as the goalie. And then I have this dark horse leverage over here at the right. You can sub this out with Croatia. You can sub that out with Uruguay. You could sub that out with the United States. But basically, when you are doing that and you're doing the late stack, you want to take one really high scoring forward. So that could be Ivan Perisic. That could be Luis Diaz from Colombia with James Rodriguez at midfield, and then any defender. But the way I want to think about each team is I'd like to have one huge stack from a championship favorite. So it could even be Germany. And then I would like to build in another minor stack where they could potentially meet in the final, and then potentially a dark horse leverage at the end. And that would be a team that's kind of outside of that top 10 championship probability. I've highlighted just a little bit of the value plays here. You've got midfielders on high advancing teams. So that's going to be Adrian Rabiot, Ryan Shirky, Cole Palmer, Declan Rice would also be the same for England. Then you've got Pedri, Rodri, and Marc Cucurella for Spain. The next tier is going to be guys from secondary teams that are actually still have high championship probability. So that's going to be Brazilian forwards like Matheus Cunha or Igor Thiago, or Endrick actually could potentially make the team. Same thing for Portugal, Rafael Leao. Honestly, guys, these names don't really matter. ADP is going to help you out with that. The thing that you just need to be thinking is you need to be thinking teams over players. You are not going to be punished in this contest for not really knowing the players because ADP is taking care of a lot of that for you. You don't need really sophisticated rankings to draft good teams in this tournament. And then you've got the dark horse leverage guys. Now, Erling Haaland, I think, is probably a little bit overpriced. Some of these guys in here are overpriced because they are really good fantasy point scorers, but not on great teams. You've got Kevin De Bruyne, you've got Memphis Depay, you've got David Raum, guys like that. Then the next thing we need to talk about is positional distribution. And this is the way I want you guys to think of it. Every draft, I want you to get 5 forwards. Every draft, I want you to get 2 goalkeepers. And then your remaining roster spots can be switched between midfielder and defender based on what your team needs. The forward format, basically, the format rewards goals above all else. You want 5 forward rosters. Midfielders are not going to score a tremendous amount of fantasy points. However, there are some guys who are basically forwards for their real life team but are listed as midfielders. So an example of that would be Leandro Trossard for Belgium, or Ryan Shirky for France, or then you've got Florian Wirtz or Kai Havertz for Germany, who are listed as midfielders. Defenders are sort of interesting because there are some defenders who do score fantasy points. You know, they generate crosses, they take corner kicks, some of them might even take penalties. None of that is true for any of the Spanish, English, or French defenders. I mean, maybe Trent Alexander-Arnold does make the final roster for England. I don't think that he probably will, in which case the 3 teams that are most likely to reach the final don't have defenders who score a ton of fantasy points, which might make guys like David Raum, like Maxime de Kuiper, a little bit interesting. Maybe Achraf Hakimi, a little bit interesting, just because they are defenders who will help you advance to the final. And as my friend, Fear My Eternal Alex Harden from ETR noted when he went on and off the clock with Peter, goalkeepers are basically, a necessary evil. 3 things to avoid. Obviously, you don't just want to be drafting the best player available. You definitely don't want to be forgetting that the final exists. And then another thing is you do need to be checking in on what's happening with the rosters. I can help you out with that over here because we need to actually know the final 26-man rosters. If you have never played over on Underdog Fantasy before, there is a link to that in the description. I want you guys to go ahead and check that out. You can use promo code Davis over there if you have never hopped in. And basically, I am planning on maxing this tournament. I want to get this tournament filled early. And now we are going to go ahead and hop into a draft and show you guys how this works. So as promised here, we are hopping into an actual draft. I'm going to show you guys exactly how this strategy works. And when you leave this video, I feel pretty confident that you are going to be able to hop in and know exactly how to draft these teams. Even if you've never watched soccer before, even if you don't know who Harry Kane is, even if you don't know who Bruno Fernandes, like if your soccer knowledge is, I know Leo Messi, I know Cristiano Ronaldo, that's honestly probably going to be enough. I think that you will have got it locked in. So I'm drafting at the first spot, which is obviously a situation that you guys are going to find yourself in sometimes. So I'm going to take Kylian Mbappe, and then I'm going to highlight other French players. Now, you're going to see right away, we've got Ousmane Dembele is way up. We're going to take Kylian Mbappe, so it's going to be really hard to get it. You're also going to notice that Mike Magnan is also very expensive, so it's going to be very hard to get a French goalkeeper. Jules Koundé is going to help us fill a defender slot. Ryan Shirky, who I've mentioned a couple times, very important. I'm probably on this team going to skip Desiree Doué. I'm going to add Aurelien Tchouameni in there. I'm also going to add Theo Hernandez, and that's probably it from France. Now, the thing that I need to start thinking about, because I just drafted in the first slot, is going to be, what am I going to do at goalkeeper? Because there's a good chance I won't be able to get Mike Magnan at 12 and 13. I'm also giving up a little bit of equity to do that, because I will be skipping on guys who are going to score a lot of points. I'm going to be skipping on some, pretty high upside guys at some of the similar positions. I'm going to be passing on, something you could do, and this is something that I have done in some of my own entries, is I am going to be taking some of the Spanish guys at this next spot when I'm picking at 12 and 13. I might take Pedri and Unai Simon and set up a France-Spain final. It's kind of an eye of the beholder situation. I wouldn't do one thing all the time. This first round is going quite chalk. I took Mbappe, then Lamine Yamal goes, then Harry Kane goes, then Leo Messi. Messi is one of the more interesting ones from the first round, because he is going to score a lot of fantasy points, but it's a little bit unclear. I mean, is Argentina that good? I mean, there is a chance that Messi does not start every game, which would be, a little bit interesting for them. And then my guy Will McManaman here at the turn does Ousmane Dembele and Mikel Alatharbal. I'm so butchering that name, but I'm doing my absolute best. That's sort of a little interesting. This is just sort of a little bit of an interesting wrinkle for him there, where he has got France and Spain set up. I don't really know what his plan would be at goalkeeper, because sadly, he is not going to be able to get the goalies by me. So the thing that he's trying to do is, it's probably not going to work. So Fear My Turtle, which is Alex Harden from ETR in this draft, he goes France forward, Portuguese midfield. We're going to see what Rye Guy does here. A lot of the times when I take Harry Kane, I kind of skip this whole next range of guys. I do not take Julian Alvarez. I don't take Erling Haaland. I just go Jude Bellingham. I think what I'm going to do, I mean, if K Will here does not take, okay, he does. So I am going to take Mike Magnan. And then the next thing that I'm going to do on this team, I'm just going to show you guys how this would potentially work. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take Pedri. So as it stands right now, I have got a French forward and I've got a French goalie. So as long as I add one French midfielder and one French defender, doesn't matter who it is, the guys are roughly ordered the way they need to be in average draft position. I have got myself set up a potential Spain-France final. Now, Pedri, you could argue, Davis, you kind of made a bad pick there. He's not going to score a ton of goals. He's probably not going to register a ton of assists. He does not take corner kicks for Spain. I certainly would have preferred to take a Nico Williams and doubled up on forwards. What this sort of start actually frees me up to do, though, is these are the kind of starts where you start thinking about the dark horses. You go, okay, well, do I want to grab some Uruguay teams? Do I want to grab some Belgium forwards? Do I want to grab some Netherlands forwards? All of which are possible. And the Netherlands guys are quite cheap. If I just sort Netherlands here, you've got Cody Gakpo, pick 40. He's a very good fantasy asset. Memphis to buy at 50 is very strong. You also have good scoring defenders. Denzel Dumfries is going to be a very good fantasy point scorer. Another one is Portugal, where Bruno Fernandes and Cristiano Ronaldo are expensive, but Pedro Neto, Rafael Leao, Bernardo Silva, João Cancelo, all of these guys are relatively inexpensive. And then if you're really down in the dumps, my absolute favorite is Colombia. You got Luis Diaz, who goes in the last round. You've got James Rodriguez, who goes in the last round. Both of those guys I expect to be quite good fantasy point scorers. You can also put Nicolas de la Cruz in that list as well. Another thing that I need to make a point, I haven't made this point yet, is ADP is kind of irrelevant once you actually get into the context of your draft. Like, you can start reaching 20, 30 spots at average draft position no problem. So the first thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to take Ryan Shirky because I do not want to miss him. He is very important for the scoring here. And then I'm going to add in, well, what do I want to do? Okay, for the purposes of this video, I'm going to take Jules Koundé just to show you guys how to build it out. Another option that I could have done there instead of waiting and waiting it forward was I could have taken Cody Gakpo, Memphis Depay, João Pedro, Pedro Neto, one of those guys. I do like João Pedro, by the way. Actually, here in this video, I'm going to give you the biggest sleeper imaginable. If we type in Brazil here, I think there's a very strong chance that Igor Thiago, who is never drafted in this tournament, ends up being the starting striker, which is the most important goal scoring position for Brazil. I would guess that he is drafted less than 10% of the time in this contest. I think that he is going to be starting over Richarlison. I don't think Estevao is going to be a starter. And I think that Igor Thiago is going to get the call over Endrick. I mean, that one really could go either way. But the way we have it set up now, think about a potential final. So we have Kylian Mbappe for one of our forward spots. We have got Ryan Shirky as our midfield spot. We've got Jules Koundé as our defender, and we've got Mike Maignan for goalie. So we need to start thinking about other forwards. Now, again, another key point here is Desiree Doué is not going to be a starter. Marcus Thuram is not going to be a starter. Kolo Muani is not going to be a starter. However, something I haven't really heard very many people talk about is you're going to get points for subs. So guys who come in off the bench, you're going to be able to generate points for them. And, you know, in a regular fantasy game, you don't want to be betting on that. But in best ball, we don't particularly care. So, Davis, what do you want to do? Do you want to set up Netherlands? Do you want to set up Brazil? I mean, another thing is to check the goalkeeper situation. So, Allison is still available. Bart van Berbergen, who is the Netherlands goalkeeper, is still available. I think on this one, you know what we're going to do? You know what? Let's do Brazil. So, we are going to do, let's do Brazil. So, let's do João Pedro, who I feel pretty certain is going to start. And then, oh, well, I wasn't paying attention. Allison just went. Okay, well then on top of that, let's go Memphis Depay. So now we have got the option for what we want to do. As long as we take one more French player, a midfielder, defender, doesn't matter. As long as we take one more, we are going to have a final that works for Spain. We are going to have a final that works for France. Now, I guess actually that's not true because for France, I missed Desiree Doué. So I would have to take Marcus Thuram, or I have to guarantee that the final is against Brazil or the Netherlands. So that is a pretty interesting thing here. And that doesn't necessarily work with England. So, for example, look at the way that FMT is setting his team up. He has got France, Portugal, Germany, Belgium, Portugal. So the way he's setting it up is he's setting Portugal versus Germany, Portugal versus France. But the key thing for him is going to be getting at least 5 Portuguese players with room for someone to come in at the forward position, which I think is pretty good. Let's look at what old friend Lou Dog has got cooking here. So he's got English forward, Spanish goalie, Spanish defender, Spanish mid, English goalie, Spanish defender. So he's setting up. He's got all his guys right there. And, you know, I could understand you at home. Maybe you're feeling like this is kind of reductive. I personally think it's very fun. And I think where the magic is going to come in is going to be in who ends up being the funny advanced team. You know, Morocco was in the World Cup semifinal in the most recent one. Maybe Switzerland makes a run. Maybe Mexico makes a run. Maybe Croatia makes a run. Maybe Uruguay makes a run. And that certainly will happen. You know, you can basically bet dollars to donuts that will be happening, right? I feel extremely certain that is going to be something that we see in this World Cup. A very surprising team will at least make the quarterfinals, which will make a huge difference in terms of what we expect to actually happen. Now, let's take Theo Hernandez. So this just sets up another pure French final. And then let's see what we've got. You know what? We're going to take Bart. Do I want to do that, or do I want to take my forward? You know what? Let's just do it. Let's just get that because I'm kind of showing you guys how it works here. So we're going to take Bart van Berbergen. So we've got a French forward. We've got a French midfielder. We have 2 French defenders, and we have a French goalie. So as long as the Netherlands or France makes it against us, then we have got a World Cup final team. Now, because I took the Netherlands goalkeeper and because I have extra picks remaining, I have 3 more picks remaining. I actually could bring in another team here. I don't think that's what I'm going to do, but because I have well, actually I would be one short. So I guess you would have to sub out Theo Hernandez for a Dutch defender. So had I taken a Dutch defender right there, I could have added in another team because I would have had at least 3 France and at least 3 Dutch players. So I could have added in a Turkey. I could have added in a Croatia. As it stands now, what I need to do is I need to either add in another French player. I could add in, I guess it would be a defender at this point. So it would be Luka Dean, Dio Upamecano, or Malo Gusto, maybe Marcus Thuram. What I positionally need, though, is forwards. Because if you're looking at how is my team going to advance, I expect Kylian Mbappe to score well. I don't expect Pedri to score very well. I do expect him to advance and to be available for a lot of this. Then we've got Ryan Shirky. Then we have got 2 defenders who are fine. So maybe instead of taking an extra midfielder, because I just say, okay, what I need Ryan Shirky to go nuts. I just need Ryan Shirky to score and generate an assist in the group stage, and then maybe I will be okay. But I'm definitely behind it forward. Even with Mbappe, I am behind it forward. I'm going to give you guys one of my biggest sleepers in the entire tournament. Basically, Anthony Gordon, who is a left winger for the English national team, I don't see much of a way he doesn't make the 26 roster. And if he makes the 26 roster, I think he also is probably going to start. So I think Anthony Gordon is a big sleeper. Here are some of my other sleepers. I mean, we got Luis Diaz, who I think is super important. We've got Federico Valverde, who I think is a big sleeper. We've got Ivan Perisic, who I think is a massive sleeper. These are all really good late clicks to make. I'm actually just going to take another Brazilian forward, though. So I'm going to take Matheus Cunha, which is going to link in with that there. And then I'm trying to see, should I take, you know what, we'll take Virgil van Dijk. We'll take another Dutch defender, and we are going to call it good at midfielder. That gives us a couple different outs at defender, and we are just going to say that Pedri and Shirky get what we need there. And then our final pick is going to be Anthony Gordon. So there we go. If you guys have any other questions, make sure to comment down below. Use promo code Davis over on Underdog, and I will see you guys in the World Pup streets.